Good afternoon, evening. I have a challenge for you. There are going to be no slides, and you actually have to remember what I'm going to say, because we might have a little test at the end of the session. So just pay attention to what we are saying, not what's up there. So my talk is going to be about 3 words and a URL. That's what I want you to remember, 3 words and a URL. The first word is perspective. You know, we're talking about an India perspective. So I just want to give you some numbers. 28 states, 7 union territories, each one operating as its own country. It's a continent, not a country. 1,600 languages and dialects, 216 languages with at least 10,000 people speaking them. 70% of the 1.2 billion population of India living in rural communities. 60% of the 1.2 billion under the age of 35. It is impossible to have one perspective on India. And I certainly am the minority. Well over 35, female, haven't lived in India for the last 30 years. But what I thought I would do is just take you through a journey of the people I have come across. That's how I can give you a perspective of India. And what I'd like to tell everyone is that when you read about India from someone, understand that it is their perspective, because there is no one perspective on India. 12 years at Intel, venture capital, social entrepreneurship. I landed in India about 10 years ago, really because I was fascinated by the intersection of education and technology. I was interested in using technology as a tool to make a difference in education. And we launched a huge program over 5 years. We raised almost $30 million for various issues in India. But what my eyes were open to is the possibility and the excitement that exists in the rural India, in the slums, in the so-called quote unquote poor community. What really blew me away was that if any of them had a tenth of the opportunity I had, I wouldn't have a job today. There is such tremendous intelligence and ambition and excitement, but lack of opportunity at this space, that we really thought we should do something about it. So we said technology as a tool, that's our goal. We really want to use that. But really, how do you create economics? It's not about giving money, it's not about charity, it's about creating enterprises that allow people to connect to others. How can we use our networks, the people that we know, in a way that will make a difference at every level? So the other thing I felt living away from India for the last 25 years was that I did not like the stories that were being told about India. You know, whenever I went to India, in some ways, if the corruption staggered me, so did the generosity with which people took me in. You know, if the slums shocked me, so did the opulence of some of the people I visited. So what I felt was that there is this entirety to India that's just not being told. And it's being told from the perspective of a few who managed to write about it. But we're not hearing it from the perspective of those whose voice it truly is. So we really wanted to set out to create an opportunity, to create a platform where you hear the perspective of someone directly from them. So we thought the best thing is, you know, I've been in US for the last 25 years. I've been attending TED since 1994. I thought, why not you take TED to India? It's a platform that already exists. But what it gave me the opportunity to is to bring the most celebrated thinkers and doers from the rest of the world to India, and to bring an amazing group of people from India, from all strata of society, to tell their stories. And the reason this is important is that India is a very young country. Even though the independence has been got 67 years ago, the economic independence happened only in 1991. So getting used to dealing with economics, getting used to dealing with people from outside, et cetera, has happened only in 20 years. So when you think of India as a country, you got to think of an adolescent. You got to think of a young person who's suddenly seen an economic success, but really doesn't have all the processes in place. So we thought it's a fantastic opportunity to go in and tell the stories and create the connections. Because what is also important is that for everyone in this room who's had the experience, who knows what it takes to create entities, to go to younger economies and join hands, not to help them, but to work side by side with them. So we thought it's a great way to create this platform. So we wanted to have multiple perspectives. We want to tell the story in its entirety. And more importantly, most importantly, we want to create a pride, inspire the people in their own abilities. So if you want to get perspectives, you can get them directly. I talked about a word, perspective, and the website, the URL is inktalks.com. So we post all these perspectives on there. You want to hear about what the rural youth in India feels, what it is like. You listen to Babar Ali, who at the age of 8 years old started a school in his backyard, and he's the youngest headmaster in the world. 10 years later today, at age 18, he has 800 children who he's teaching with the help of 10 volunteers. And the first year when we invited him to the conference, he could not speak English. We had to have it translated from Bengali to English. He came and told me, if you invite me next year, I will give the speech myself. And I invited him the next year. He gave a 12-minute talk in English last year. And he's doing his undergraduate in English honors, passed with flying colors, and he's building his school. You want to hear a rural youth? Listen to him. You want to hear about rural entrepreneurship? How can we keep jobs in the villages and not to move them to urban? Listen to Mansukh Bhai Prajapati, who creates pressure cookers, pans, even refrigerators out of clay, beautifully designed, amazingly articulate in his own language. You listen to him about rural entrepreneurship. You want to understand what it is to have sex trafficking, what it is to be subject to it, what solutions exist. Listen to Sunita Krishnan. She will spare no detail. You cannot take your eyes off, nor can you watch, and you will cry. Listen to her. You don't need to hear her story from me. Listen to her directly. And what we were amazed by, not just the stories and the quality of the stories that are coming from India, but the quality of the people that came from outside. You want to hear about a science groupie. Listen to James Cameron's interview. We didn't talk to him about Avatar. We talked to him about being a science groupie. And it was fascinating. So all these perspectives to be brought in for this interaction to happen. So that's what the conference is all about. And the second word I want you to remember is journey. Because we really believe that in the last few years of industrial revolution, we, everyone included here, have focused so much on the goal that we did not pay attention to how we were traveling there. We have decimated our environment. We have pretty much ignored everybody in the animal kingdom. And worse, we trampled over each other. And we are in a situation today where we can actually pay attention to each other if we focus on the journey. So our theme this year is Power of the Journey. We said, what if you forget about the destination? Forget about whether you want to be a billionaire or a millionaire or a shareholder of equity. Just focus on how we are going there. Because you know what? Things are changing in the world fast anyway. Whatever plan you make today is completely irrelevant a year from now. The only thing that's going to save us is paying attention to the journey. Then maybe, just maybe, we can take care of the land we're borrowing from our children. So 2 words and an URL so far. I'll hold off for the 3rd word because we want to make sure you remember everything we've told you so far. The thing that amazed us, when we did TED India, it was a one-off event. We said we'll do one event, and then that was it. But what amazed me personally is what we are capable of doing with a little bit of effort to turn some of these ideas into reality. When Sunita Krishnan got up and spoke about what it is to happens in sex trafficking, in what way are each of us contributing to it, and what we need to do. And when she talked about how she gets kicked out from every home because no one wants a home in their neighborhood, it's just the generosity of the people staggered us between Google and the people. We raised enough money to be able to build a whole new home for almost 200 women to move to a home they call their own. They don't need to be kicked out anymore. It's their home. And we have raised money, we have raised, made connections to be able to bring technology to preserving architecture, to preserving art. I mean, it's just amazing to me what we could do with a few phone calls and a few connections. So what I want to open up is this possibility of a journey. So we launched Inc. Conference, and Inc. stands for Innovation and Knowledge. And ink is also an ingredient. Whether we are printing, whether we are writing, no matter what we are doing, we need ink. But it only takes the shape in the hands of its creator. It is as good, as beautiful as the person who's shaping it. It's nothing in itself. And that's how we see ourselves. We are a catalyst. We are nothing but for the people we surround ourselves with. So we are on this journey using technology as a tool. And the third word that I want to talk to you about is billionaire of moments. We have a new vocabulary. We say that how do you measure success? If Mahatma Gandhi preached nonviolence but didn't get independence to India, would we call him not successful? And if Hitler was very successful in what he wanted to do and had all the following, would we call him successful? So I think success is not in numbers, it's not in results. It's the way people go about doing things. And we said every year we'll pick people who are billionaire of moments, which means they create moments for you that are long lasting, because we believe that life ought to be measured not in the number of breaths we take, but in the number of breathtaking moments we experience. We pick people, we are giving a new title, we are creating a new measure of success, and we are calling it billionaire of moments. And the people we present to you, whether on our website or on the stage, are all billionaires of moments. And if Steve Jobs was a billionaire of moments, so was Dennis Ritchie, who also passed away this week, who, along with Ken Thompson, was the creator of Unix, which is the mother of all open sourcing that we talk about. We need to remember every billionaire of moments, not for the money they make, but for the impact they made for us. So what I thought I would do is, in addition to all the billionaires of moments we have on our site, I'll introduce you to a couple of them that we are very proud to call our family. First, I'd like to introduce you to Shilo Shiv Suleman. At age 22, she's a recent graduate of design school in Bangalore. And she makes up with her creativity what she lacks in age. And she was our Inc. Fellow last year, and she was also a Levi's Fellow at the TED Global. And she is doing something that I see very interesting happening with youth, is moving into modern times while taking tradition along. So what Shilo is going to talk about is the magic of storytelling and the mysteries to be unveiled by mastery of technology. Shilo.
Hello. So unlike Lakshmi here, I have lots of slides. My journey began with my mother, Shilo Suleman. She was a cartographer. And as a child, I'd spend hours watching her pore over those maps, creating rivers and mountains with her fingers, and each delicately ink-spelled word would become a gilded gateway into a world full of pirates and shipwrecks and things that still lurk in my imagination. I started painting very seriously when I was 12 years old. And it was really amazing, actually. Being a child, it's a very intuitive connection that one has. I would just spill ink bottle after ink bottle and watch it snake and morph into images without my mind directing it. Another fascinating thing about being a child is that somehow me and my friends could get together and create these magical worlds together, completely imaginary, that we'd both share. Imagine that. Invisible worlds that somehow we can both see, and none of us doubted. I didn't want to stop sharing those worlds as I grew up, and so I started illustrating books for children. I illustrated my first book when I was 16, quite a child myself, and have done many since. And as I started creating these worlds, I also started to travel my own and record it in a variety of different journals that I kept. I started working with different communities to use art as a medium of social change in Bangalore and across India as well. And it's on one of these journeys that I had the good fortune of meeting this Sufi musician, Mukhtar Ali. We were in conversation one night under the desert sky in Rajasthan, and we were talking about how nothing has changed since the time of the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata. So he was saying that Arjuna, who's this warrior prince in the Mahabharata, when he was thirsty, he'd shoot an arrow into the ground and water would come out. And now we do the same with drills and machines. He was saying back in the day in India, we used to have these golden flying chariots that would take us across the sky. And now we have aeroplanes. So the conclusion that we came to was that magic had been replaced by machinery. And this terrified me. It made me really, really sad. If anything, magic should enable, magic should be enabled by machines. And so I found myself becoming a little bit of a technophobe. Does someone say technophobe at the Wired conference? Yeah, I found myself becoming a little bit of a technophobe. I was afraid that I would lose the ability to actually enjoy a moment watching a beautiful sunset if I didn't have a camera on me and upload it on Facebook immediately. I was afraid that I'd get so sucked in to my iPhone or my iPad that I wouldn't notice and sketch the crow that had been following my train for 3 hours. But of course, I needed to get over that, and that's also why I'm here. Because I had to face it, iPads are cool, you know? iPhones are cool, they're awesome, they're amazing, they're useful. And I wanted to have one. I wanted to see how I could use it. So I began a journey. I started working on a series of interactive narratives for children. The first book was actually an augmented reality book for kids. And so it's called Khoya. Khoya is the Hindi word for lost. And it's about a dystopic world where the natural world has disappeared and been replaced by machines, obviously. And these two children who use their imagination and their devices to bring back the natural world bit by bit. So how it worked was that you'd buy it in a shop, you'd bring it back home, and you could read it like a normal book, but if you did have a webcam, you could take out these QR codes or secret symbols to the children, put them in front of the magic mirror of your webcam, and see yourself transform into one of the characters. In one of the interactions, you could actually take out one of the codes, strap it onto your shoulder, and you'd see a crow sitting on your shoulder in your screen, whispering secrets into your ear. So it actually made the book come alive. I then showed this at the Ink conference, where I met Lakshmi, and felt inspired, really, to move along and see what else interactive narratives could do. I also found that actually when I walked into this world of technology, it wasn't all that dry as I thought. I mean, just look at the last 2 days. Robots, do people actually know that robots exist? I mean, it's amazing, right? Or even something that we take for granted, like flying. I mean, sometimes I'm sitting on a flight and I'm thinking, wow, wait a minute, we're floating from one part of the world to the other in the clouds, and people are serving us drinks. I mean, even magic carpets didn't have it that easy. And so I started working on an iPad book for kids as well. Back when I started working on it, I didn't have an iPad, so I made myself one out of cardboard and actually created the first prototype of my iPad app on a cardboard iPad. This is where you all go, aww, India. Sorry. So what I find really, really fascinating, actually, about the iPad is, for the first time in the history of human storytelling, here we have a device that actually brings together not just image and text, like our books, but also animation, sound, movement, time, the internet. I mean, what's really strong about the tablet platform for storytelling is that the book can now know where we are. It can now know how we're holding it. It can ask us to participate in the story and potentially connect readers all over the world at the same time. It can become a magic mirror in which we can now alter and overlay new realities. And somehow all the stuff that I was seeing on the iPad didn't seem enough. Like someone else said earlier, being digital should be more interesting than just being electronic. I mean, here we have touch as a part of the story for the first time ever. So I was really excited to see what that could do, like more and more multisensorial storytelling. And so right now what I have here is just a sneak peek. We're going to be launching in December. So it's just to give you a sort of idea of how this is moving. So you click on your screen, and it says, place your fingers upon each light. So when I take my hand and I place it on the screen, it reads it. So once you enter, you need to say, it says this book belongs to, and so you type in your name. And does anyone remember the never-ending story back in the 80s where the child in the book realized that actually what he was doing outside in the real world affected the book? Once you've typed your name in here, you actually become a character. Now that's a reality. You can actually affect how the story interacts with you. So you type in your name, and in you go. And it says there seems to be something inside the jar. Shake it up to open. So then what you need to do is actually shake it and shake it and keep shaking it for a little while until it opens. And there are fireflies inside. What else would you keep in a jar? And these fireflies then help you illuminate your way through the story as you move along. What we've also tried to do is really relook at how one navigates a book. I mean, back in the day, we used to have these maps, but those maps are static. Over here, we can actually create devices within a device that read these maps and are alive and breathing. They change as you move from chapter to chapter within the book. And not only are you navigating your way then from chapter to chapter, but also through a landscape that also reacts to what the weather is like outside. It reacts to the things that are happening in the story. You can see where the different characters are at different points. So now that you've entered, one of the chapters is The Valley of Flowers. And you can read it like you would a book. And then there are some pages that just come alive. And something that's really important to me, actually, is creating contemporary Indian narratives. I feel like there's so much richness and culture and mythology in our country that just needs to be brought out. So using modern technology then becomes such a great way of doing it. Over here, for example, the Valley of Flowers is actually inspired by the real Valley of Flowers that I've traveled to in the Himalayas, where the locals say that if you wander off too far, you'd be abducted by these beautiful apsaras or Indian nymphs of sorts that personify different flowers. So yeah, this part is actually inspired by that real space. And in the story, these two children actually do get abducted, and then through your interactions, you actually help them get out of this space. You can shake it around. You need to unlock things by turning your iPad round and round. At some point, there are leaves across your screen, and you need to make the sound of wind for it to move across and take you to the next chapter. Another amazing, amazing thing about the iPad is that it's a mobile device, right? In the last 10 years, a big issue has been that children get completely sucked into their big, clunky PCs at home, and they don't go out enough. But now we can change that. Now they can take their computers out with them. And so with this interaction, what I try to do is exactly that. While you're reading, suddenly an envelope drops down, and the iPad knows where you live. So it's actually addressed to you. And it says, you've got mail. Come on, shake it up and see what's inside. So you shake it, and it's a letter from this character called the map maker. And he actually keeps sending you letters through your entire journey through the book and sends you off on a variety of quests. On some quests, you need to take your iPad and take it to a house plant and see what magical creatures live inside that house plant through augmented reality. In this particular one, though, the map maker has actually given you a camera. And now, something that was really special about my childhood, and possibly a lot of people here as well, and generations before us, is that as children, we all collected different natural objects. I mean, this was something that we all did. We had treasures of sticks and stones and pebbles and shells that we really actually cared about and we really treasured. And that's something also with digital technology that I see kids not doing as often. So over here, one of the quests is that as the children on the book go along their story, you need to actually get out of your house, take your iPad, hopefully not get mugged in the streets, and take pictures of different natural objects as you move along. So for example, in the Valley of Flowers, you need to get out and take a picture of a flower, and then tag it. And then in another space, you need to take a picture of some bark and tag that as well. And essentially what could happen then is that you create a social network around this digital collection. A child in India could upload this onto the internet and say, "Oh, I saw a monkey today," typically because we see monkeys all the time. And a child in London says, "Well, I saw a fox." And so it kind of creates this buzz around different natural objects that we find. And also it gets you out of the house. You get to know the biodiversity in your region. So what I find is that through history, one of the things that are characteristic of fantasy stories is using one's imagination to communicate and create relationships with animals and birds that we inhabit the earth with. And fantasy has always been a way of doing that. All our fantasy stories have talking bears and birds. And with Koya, I'd like my readers to rediscover the magic of a natural world through a fantastical but technological experience. In finding connections between magic, the earth, and technology, we find ourselves facing a vast ocean of possibilities. We seem to be moving towards a world where technology and the forces of nature come closer together, be it through harnessing energy from the sun or through something as simple as bringing ourselves and our children closer together through the simple medium of a story. I'm really, really excited about what technology holds for future storytelling. I mean, at the rate we're going, the next iPad might just levitate. And imagine what that could do to an interactive narrative for kids. Starting with our first experiment with interactive narratives, Koya, December 2011. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Now, I would like to invite onto the stage our next speaker, Shantanu Moitra. He is one of the hottest music composers in Bollywood. And if you have any Indian friends, and if you tell him his name, they would be stupendously jealous of you that you met him. What is really interesting, come on up. So what's really interesting is what is his true passion. So what we thought is through a conversation, we'll talk about what he's really passionate about. Well, he's going to be sitting, I'm going to be standing because I don't want to jump up on that thing. So not because indifference to him or anything. So we'll have a little conversation, a little bit of music, a little bit of talk, and that'll be the plan for today. So Shantanu, one of the things when I met Shantanu, what I found is that he's really passionate about folk music. It's a disappearing trend everywhere in the world, especially in India. So Shantanu, maybe tell us about where did the inspiration come from? Where did you first start thinking about folk music?
Hi, everybody. Before I start, I just want to say that my father would have been very happy to see me here because the average IQ level in this room is very dizzying. And he always thought music was for people who were not interested in studies. So, an incident happened 10 years back where I was traveling to Rajasthan, and I heard this song. Kesariya baal mein aur de padharu are re de. It's basically a folk song from Rajasthan which really invites you and tells you, please come to my land and see this beautiful place. And I was mesmerized by this voice, Lakshmi, Rukmabai, and I had these visions of who this lady is and this. And she was a national award winner, Padma Shri and all that. So I went her, searched her, thought there would be a house, something. Nobody seemed to know where she lived, and eventually found out, Lakshmi, that she was staying on the desert sand in a tent. Her son was involved in the fencing of the Indo-Pakistan border, so every 6 months they would move. And it really was a shocker for me because there was this lady whose voice had mesmerized me, was actually down there. And I spent some time with her. I recorded some stuff with her. And she was a vibrant lady, happy, very poor, but that didn't matter. And I heard some amazing music for her. And I thought I had done something very important. I had gone there, almost the first person to record her. And the day I was leaving from there, Lakshmi, she said that, I have 2 friends which I want you to say hello to them. Because from her perspective, everything outside her house is the world. It's Delhi, New York, it's all the same. So she said, if you meet her, please tell them that now I have moved from my last location. So I didn't want to disappoint her. I said, yeah, sure, I'll tell her. So she took out a photograph. And in the photographs, she was sitting, and there were 2 gentlemen who looked familiar. And I just turned around, and there was this beautiful note which said that, Rukmabai, not only are you a great artist, but you're a greater human being. It was signed by Eric Clapton and John McLaughlin. And I said, oh, okay. It was eye-opener for me, Lakshmi, because they had come here, recorded them with BBC World, and I offered her some money. She said, let's party. I said, why don't you save? She said, son, don't teach me how to live. Last 25 years, I've lived for today. You know, things like that, lessons of life. And then one thing she said that Shantanu, there's nobody to sing to anymore. And that really shook me up, Lakshmi. Because every movie that I do, Bollywood, and you know, there is this hordes of people who are sitting there, and every time it happens, that sentence of her keeps on bothering me, that there's nobody there to listen to. And it's true, today, any one of the speakers from yesterday and today, I challenge them, let them speak to an empty auditorium. And they won't move beyond 5 sentences because it's an interaction. And this 300, 400-year-old legacy is just there because we are so caught up with movies and what's contemporary and what's market and what's working that we've completely forgot that part of it. So what happened was that I became my passion and I started traveling. And the next important incident which happened was that I got to know that in Arunachal Pradesh, a remote part of India, where in a small village 10 years back, a tribal community, musical tribal community, had been in gunpoint converted to a religion. Because tribals don't have religion, but they were converted to religion. The conversion was not a problem, but Lakshmi, what happened, in one shot, an entire musical legacy got over because they couldn't sing those songs.
They're not allowed to sing.
Yeah, and I went there, and what I did was that I recorded some stuff, which I just thought I'll show it. This is the only recorded evidence ever, because they'll not sing this again, because they're afraid to die. There are only 3 people who sing this language. It's a combination between Chinese, Tibetan, and Bhutanese. And if I had not recorded this, at the average age of the women, anything can happen. So what I started doing, Lakshmi, was that I started using folk music as part of my popular scores. So in movies, in ad jingles. So one of the ad jingles which I did 2 years back, I recorded, I used a format called Dhrupad, which is 150 years old. I didn't tell the producer that. I said, this is my, this is my influence. I didn't say that. But I just used that. And if you can play the commercial, it's for...
and it's a way in which you integrate what you want into something contemporary with or without the knowledge of the people.
This won the Cannes Bronze Medal 2002 for Best Music.
Innovative music.
What is important is it's folk music. It's not passé, it's not old, it's not poor, it's contemporary, it's how you use it. But Lakshmi, the point is that we often we deny something new, saying that we don't understand it. Yeah. I don't like it. And we just move on to something else. This is the age of, as we said, Facebook, we don't like the face, we can move on. SMS, we don't like it. Everything is fast, but everything in life cannot be fast. And I think my country's folk music is the only representation of the legacy which is there. And if that goes, nothing can really happen. Which really prompted me to the fact that this idealism is not possible without technology.
Right.
And I'm a music composer, so I'm embracing technology every day. But I realized that I need the help of technology. And what I realized was many of these places, Lakshmi, for example, this place where I'd gone, a lot of birders, they call the birds by recording that voice on the mobile phone and playing it back, almost like a mating call. And they come here. I thought that was an innovative use of a mobile phone recorder. And the fact that a mobile phone has got both the recorder and the video, I thought, let's empower the people. Let them record whatever they are, wherever they are, and put that in a kind of a cloud, and let's have a tagging, and let's have a GPS coordinates every time they're done. It's an idea, but I think what better place to present an idea with my half IQ to a place with so much IQ. Yeah. If they can take this something else, it's just a belief that I have, but it needs to be done because last year Rukmabai died, and I think I don't want any more such great artists to die without doing anything about it.
Because one of the things we realized, after the conference is that it's great to discuss ideas, but if we can actually work together to make them real, it'll be great. So we are actually working now on putting this website together where we can get people to tag it and upload it and collect all this music. And then because he's from Bollywood and he has the connections, we can actually go and record them all through the year and make it into a very profitable venture so that it's self-sustainable. So we are working on that, but we wanted to present it here because we would love all of you to participate in it. So I think we should, give a little treat to everybody on, as I said, what he's really known for is Bollywood music, and he has managed to put in folk in Bollywood music too. So maybe you should sing something from Parinita is a movie in which he has included things from jazz and folk and everything. So maybe sing a little bit.
More importantly, Parinita was from Bengal, and Bengal folk was really kind of not very popular and dying. So I used this in the mainstream thing. One of the songs I did was दिल की जो बातें जो दिल की हैं, दिल ही में रखना पिया, लब तो ना खोलूं मैं, खोलूं ना लब तो पर आँखों से सब कह दिया. And the next part is the folk part. पियू बोले, पिया बोले, क्या ये बोले जानू ना, जिया डोले, हाले हाले, क्यों ये डोले जानू ना. So I just amalgamated both. And in an interview, then later on, I would say that, you know what, this part was folk, this part was folk. And they would say, oh, really? That folk works in cinema? That's how it is? I guess it's a kind of an awareness. And I know time is short, but I'll just say one amazing thing was when I was growing up in Lucknow, they used to sell grapes. The vendors used to sell grapes. And the song that they used to sing was, Jamun kale kale ya. जामुन काले काले रोया सुना राई तेरे लिरा, अरे जामुन काले काले या, जामुन काले काले या. And the national anthem of South Africa is Kosi sigale li Africa, malufaga me vayo spondolo ayo, isvaye mi thanda soyetu, kosi sigale la. There's been a migration from UP, which is from in Africa. Somewhere this music and that music merged and it became part of the anthem. If we don't record, if we don't collate, if we don't archive, we will not get to know patterns. And I genuinely believe, Lakshmi, that it is unfair to compare that with my music, which is number 1 or number 2, whatever it is, because that's a 300-year-old tradition. Okay? So for the moment, let's just record it, and then we'll figure out what to do with it.
So I would like to end on, one of the movies he did recently was called 3 Idiots, which is one of the most successful films, and with the famous song from that.
I'll just quickly say 4 lines which I used in English for a Hindi film, which was a big one. And it was again a tribute to Rukmabai because I just was so moved by her. Sari umr hum mar mar ke ji liye, ek pal to ab hame jeene do. Give me some sunshine, give me some rain, give me another chance. I want to grow up once again. Thank you.